So currently, InterQuest are the 6th largest recruitment organisation in the UK. We are focused primarily on the technical areas that drive the digital transformation that a number of UK PLCs are really struggling with. We've been on a journey, probably over the last 4 years, moving away from being a generic technology recruitment company and moving into these niche areas of digital, information security, some of the challenges that companies have around analytics and so on and so forth, and I'll talk about them in a second. I think the quickest way of explaining what we do is we find very, very hard to find niche resources for companies who are really struggling on that road to digital transformation. Just a few notes about our results for last year. So as I said, we're an AIM-listed business. Our EBITDA was up to £5.5 million. Our net fee income grew probably a little bit flatter than we'd like to see. There was a significant change in management in the second half of last year, and that tailed off a bit, but we've already seen a very smart start to this year. And interestingly, if you are going to be an investor looking for long-term growth, what you can see is a very good dividend there, a progressive dividend policy, and we're giving probably about a 4% yield. When you look at that number, we've got to think that there was a significant amount of change last year, and if you are an investor, we'd like to repay you for your patience with us over the next coming 12 to 18 months, when hopefully we'll see the stock price grow. But just a little bit about us and what we've done over the last year. So how we differentiate ourselves from our competitors is we try to identify these very hard to find niche resources just before anyone else can. It's very hard to find someone when you need them. Everyone would say that they're a passive job seeker. We can't rely on active job seekers. And when you go to find someone at very short notice and you don't know them, you don't always get the response that you want. So we reach out to these very hard to find pools of candidates through a number of different forms, and one of them being social media. We've invested heavily in our social media presence, building a rapport with candidates so that when we do have something for them, or when we do need them for a particular role, we can go to them. We've already built a relationship with them, and if it isn't them, they will then be able to recommend a colleague or someone else with a particular skill set that they can help us with. We produced 300 pieces of unique content last year, and we grew our follower base by over 25,000 of these niche resources. Just to put it into perspective, last year we placed 3,000 people, and all of these people were very, very niche, hard to find resources. If you're not already a kind of au fait with the recruitment sector, I think sometimes it's hard just to get a bit of a feel for actually the size of that market. Currently it represents £31.5 billion worth of spend a year. So if you look at the amount of roles that were advertised out there in the UK last year, it was 750,000 roles. Not all of those are specifically IT, but you've seen a significant growth in the need for these very, very hard to find resources, and that's where we've positioned ourselves. If you talk about the numbers on such a broad base, it really doesn't focus on what we do. So if I just to talk you through a little about the areas that we focus on. What's being predicted by the Recruitment and Employment Confederation is a 500% growth in the need for digitally enabled skills. And there's a significant challenge both in the UK and across Europe and the rest of the world, in as much as we are not producing the number of graduates with these skill sets that can move us forward. So we're now working with companies to identify candidates we can cross-skill into these areas, and kind of counterbalance that red graphic in the middle that says if you're not in one of those digital business processes, it's very, very likely that the demand for those skills is going to drop by 50% between now and 2020. I can remember talking to a colleague of mine 4 or 5 years ago about the job role of data scientist, and people would openly laugh at me. What on earth is a data scientist? I don't understand where that's coming from. Now actually it's one of the hottest skills we're trying to find. Companies are trying to understand what they can do with their data, how they can make their businesses more effective, more efficient, and how from their existing resources they can return a better profit. The demand for data scientists is going to increase 75% over the next 3 years. And we are now working very hard to ensure that we have that kind of pool of candidates that we can call upon for both businesses large and small. And I think one of the areas that we're really focusing on and we're investing in moving forwards is cybersecurity. There is no company based in the UK that's going to go from a traditional operating model and move into the digital world who are not going to face challenges around security. A very good friend of mine is a head of governance for a large biscuit manufacturer, and they have over 32 denial of service attacks a day. Now, I don't think people are necessarily after the recipe for their biscuits. What they're after is the fact that they can then go onto a website and say, I'm the person that broke this company or that company. And companies really have to start defending themselves. And this is not a small industry, it's absolutely colossal. So nobody wants to be the next TalkTalk. So again, this is one of those areas of the digital journey that we're focusing on. And for us now, it's about identifying these candidates, these pools of candidates, so we get to them very quickly. As I say again, where we're slightly unique and we're different from the competition is that we're building these relationships so that we can call upon these very hard to find resources and they'll respond to us where we need them. And the final thing I want to say on this slide is the Internet of Things. And I don't know, this is language that some of you may understand, but it's one machine talking to another machine. We are now seeing opportunities with very large corporates to embed the Internet of Things technology into their devices. A good example of that would be GE, where a drill head would now have 22,000 sensors on it, so the drill head doesn't get stuck in the hole, so they have to send another drill down to go and get it out, and that whole thing will cost approximately $25 million. So we're now working with companies like that to find the technology and find the technologists that will provide those solutions. How we've organised ourselves, and it might be a little small, so you might need to look at the screens around you, but we've moved away from generic IT recruitment. That market has gone. Companies now looking to offshore those skills. It's a commoditized market. Our area of specialism is working with experts who specialize in these very niche and hard to find areas. By definition, experts know more and more about less and less, and those are the people we want to play with. As you can see here, analytics, digital, information security, telecommunications, technology, and change are the core building blocks, the pillars that companies are going to have to look at if they're going to take a standard operating model and move it into a digitized form. I think one of the key areas for us moving forward is the final column of that, change, where we're going about building a business at the moment where we can affect that change layer that sits on the board of PLCs and mid-sized companies, where technology is an enabler, but actually companies are now looking to change their fundamental operating models, and we are now moving into that space to be able to advise and support them on that journey. I think another thing I'd like to point out is that these pillars are now, but today's speciality is tomorrow's commodity. So if you look at the technology column there in IQ Technology, you'll see, for example, ESM, Enterprise Service Management. That may grow into being another one of these pillars, but it's probably our fastest growing area of the group at the moment. But we just don't know the scale yet. So we're forever having to keep our eyes open and identify where those opportunities are. It might also be easy to think that we provide these niche and hard to find skills into very, very small companies, but actually nothing could be further from the case. We work with half of the FTSE 100, 7 of the large retail banks, 8 of the largest retailers. And importantly for us, we work with all of the large 4 advisories. And actually they are a very good bellwether. And if you see where those companies are pointing themselves, they always address the challenges of their clients, and we're there to support that same client base on that journey. This has gone red, so I need to hurry up. A small selection of our 1,300 customers there for you, but very well-known names. My point being, large companies probably struggle the most with these issues because it's trying to turn a supertanker as opposed to a jet ski. So moving forward for us, there are 3 principles. It's recruitment, it's retention, and it's cross-selling. I think if we were to focus on these core areas for us, it's my plan that we're going to grow the business by 40 to 50 heads from our existing 300. We'll get the revenue growth from that. I think we owe it to ourselves to really invest in the learning development of our staff so they can then advise their end clients. And we work with those lists of 1,300 customers to ensure that we get all of those pillars of growth into them and unlock the potential. So thank you very much.